Hey guys, Persephone Plasmids here, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 final girls in video games. Now, if you're not familiar with what a final girl is, first of all, I would suggest that you go and check out the movie The Final Girls, because it's hilarious and fantastic, and I think you'll thank me for it later. So go check that movie out. So a final girl is basically in a horror movie when everybody's getting killed and murdered and torn apart and chainsaw. The final girl is the one who survives and then kills the bad guy. Today I talk about my top 5 final girls in video games. Beware spoilers for these games. You've been warned. If any of you played Little Nightmares, you know that 6 is a little bit of a bad A. First, she doesn't actually have any weapons or a lot of skills or anything, but she's small and she can run and hide. Plus, she's able to defeat the janitor with his creepy long arms, eludes the chefs, he gets away from the granny. Well, I guess she doesn't, that's actually the boy. Oops. At the very end, she kills the lady. So even though she's this tiny little thing, and she can't fight and doesn't have any weapons, and all she can do is run and hide, she's kind of awesome, and she's one of my favorite final girls. There is some debate about the parentage of Chell, or Shell if we're saying that her name is Michelle, but we don't know that yet. We have Chell. So our silent protagonist makes her way through tons of test chambers set up by evil but kind of awesome GLaDOS. In Portal 2, you get to make your way through some of the test chambers with GLaDOS. I mean, she's a potato, but it's still her. The reason she's one of my favorite final girls is not because of her boss fight with GLaDOS, but because of her boss fight with Wheatley, because that guy sucks. But not really, Stephen Merchant, I really love you. Much like 6 from Little Nightmares, Chell doesn't actually have tons that she can do, but unlike 6, she does have at least one weapon. So with her one weapon and her absolutely zero communication, she manages to take down not only GLaDOS in the first installment of Portal, but take down Wheatley the Idiot in the end. She's kind of amazing. Still waters run deep with this one. For this next final girl, I realize that this sounds like I'm saying I'm my favorite final girl, which is totally not the case, but the Commander from Guild Wars 2, which, as you guys may or may not know, is basically just your player character. Credit where credit is due, I was able to slay Zaitan and Mortimer by myself. That's right, I soloed it, just because I have social anxiety and didn't want to group up with anybody, but that's a story for another day. As the commander, you get to kind of choose your adventure a little bit. In Guild Wars 2, they have this living story, so you do kind of follow along with that, but you can kind of choose the way that you follow it. Side note, Guild Wars 2 is an amazing MMO. I've played EverQuest, World of Warcraft, Ultima Online. I've played all sorts of RPGs, and this one kind of takes the cake. Because at first I was a little bit annoyed that as you go through the different zones, it actually levels you down, until I realized what an advantage that is, because then every time that you fight, no matter what zone you're in, you're getting the maximum XP that you can get. Also, there's a reason people call it Fashion Wars. Fantastic clothes in that game. Let's not forget the fact that Jennifer Hale is the voice of the Sylvari player character, Pro Sylvari over here. And I did actually meet Jennifer Hale at Salt Lake Comic Con and Salt Lake Gaming Con, and I'm pretty sure I creeped her out with my love for her, so sorry, Jennifer Hale. My next final girl is Alex from Oxenfree. Now, if you haven't played Oxenfree, it's kind of this amazing semi-side-scroller cinematic platformer game. I actually only started playing it because I was working as a story developer on this other indie game, and my homework one night was to go home and play Oxenfree, because they wanted kind of similar dialogue options and things like that with the bubbles that appear on the screen, and then you have to pick one as the character. I went home to play it and didn't really expect much, and I kind of became obsessed with it. I'm talking really obsessed. I played it probably 7 times at least. I started walking around with a notebook so that I could write down all of these little theories that I had on different things. I looked up the ARG, which I sadly missed by 1 month. I can't tell you how many times I have called the phone number that's hidden inside the game just to leave messages telling the game developers how much I love them. Night School Studios, if you're watching, I love you so much. You're fantastic. In Oxenfree, you play as Alex, and she and her group of friends are going to Everett's Island. While there, you find out that your handheld radio can kind of communicate with the ghosts, and you actually go to these different piles of rocks. You tune your radio into the right frequency, and that can make it so that you hear these messages and eventually start opening portals where the undead are residing. The reason that Alex is one of my favorite final girls, even in a game that doesn't actually have any combat, is because, first of all, she has to deal with Clarissa, who, I'll admit, after playing it 7 times, I actually really like Clarissa, and I feel really bad for her. But the first few times you play it, you totally hate Clarissa, and you have to put up with her the whole time, and it's terrible. It also has to deal with Ren, who I love, but the guy's kind of a spaz, and he does not do anything to really help you out. He kind of hinders you, if anything. Then you've got Jonas, our new stepbrother, but you don't really know him that well, and he's kind of making things a little awkward with your friends, but he ends up being super helpful. And then Nona, who's just a peach, and she's fine. All the while, you're also dealing with the recent death of your brother Michael, which is obviously traumatizing. So despite all of this, Alex actually manages to figure out the backstory of Edward's Island, but she also has to make some pretty tough decisions. That being said, Clarissa, I'm sorry for that time that I left you on the island. That was really unfair. Let's still be friends. But once you finally get to the end, you have to make some really hard decisions about maybe keeping yourself in this limbo time loop thing, or maybe sacrificing a friend so that you can get home. Well, Alex is one of my favorite final girls for that reason, even if technically it's not much of a boss fight and she doesn't actually end up killing anybody, except for you, Clarissa, sorry. She makes it to the end using just her wits and her dialogue, which I kind of love. I'm starting to notice that none of these characters really fight that much, except for the commander and Guilders too. I should probably start playing some more violent games. But that's why I love Alex from Oxenfree. My last and most favorite final girl is Elizabeth Comstock from Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea. Unpopular opinion time. Bioshock 2 is my absolute favorite game of the whole franchise. I know a lot of people didn't like it. I know people were mad that Ken Levine didn't work on it. And I know people think they just recycled the first one and set it 10 years later. If you give it a chance, it's actually a really fantastic game. It has great characters, has a great backstory, and it ties into the first one so perfectly. Please give it another try. It's really kind of amazing. And those little sisters are adorable. I don't know why Bioshock has such a hard time making little kids that are not terrifying. The Baguette Boy, or the little sisters in the first Bioshock. But Bioshock 2 really mastered it. They made these adorable little girls that you actually really feel sorry for, and it kind of brings the passion level up to a whole new level as a Big Daddy. End of rant. Give Bioshock 2 another try. But while Bioshock 2 is my favorite in the franchise, my second favorite in the franchise is actually not technically its own Bioshock game, but DLC for Bioshock Infinite. So if you haven't played Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea, I suggest you do that because it's amazing. Specifically, I'm talking about part 2. Obviously, play part 1 first. In part 2, you get to play as Elizabeth Comstock, the girl that you've been protecting and trying to smuggle to the Lutece twins throughout the whole Bioshock Infinite game. When you play as Elizabeth Comstock, you actually do get some weapons and some really nifty plasmids that you never got in any of the other games. Peeping Tom, I'm looking at you. So you get all sorts of new plasmids. You basically get Hitman vision with the Peeping Tom plasmid, so you can kind of see where people are. What you're doing is stealth, because while Elizabeth is awesome, she's not OP. You definitely have to use your stealth and be kind of sneaky about what you're doing. I love the fact that you get to see Elizabeth interact with people from both the first Bioshock and also Bioshock Infinite, and they get to kind of meld these two worlds together and explain how they're connected. Also love that Elizabeth is so committed to what she believes in that she actually sacrifices her own abilities to be able to come back and do what she thinks is right, even though it doesn't end so well. Now I know what you're saying. Elizabeth didn't end up killing the bad guy in the end because she died, so she's not actually the final girl. Bear with me. In a roundabout way, Elizabeth Comstock is the final girl of Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea. It's Elizabeth's actions that set into motion Jack Wynand, or Jack Ryan, coming to Rapture in the first place in Bioshock 1, and because of him, the little sisters are freed, unless you're a monster and you harvested them. Andrew Ryan is killed. Atlas, aka Fontaine, the creepy fishmonger, is also killed. So because of what Elizabeth did, Jack Ryan is able to come in and fix everything. So while I guess Jack Ryan is the final girl, Elizabeth deserves the credit for being the final girl. It's because of her that everything kind of got set into motion, and she sacrificed herself, so we need to give her some props for that. Those are my picks for my top 5 favorite final girls from video games. Let me know who your favorite final girls are in the comments below. Don't have to be girls, and also if you want to bend the rules like I did to where it's not actually, you know, that they kill the boss at the end or something like that, that's fine too. Obviously, I'm breaking the rules. If you'd like to see more videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I promise I'm actually going to start posting more regularly. So, there you go. Thanks for watching.